We are anonymous, your eyes and ears in the shadows, tracking the secret wars, the covert supply chains, the silent front lines. Tonight, we bring you the full story of what happened on October the 27th, 2025, 60 nautical miles off the coast of Cartagena in the Caribbean Sea. This is Deep Dive Uncut, all the fragments. You need to understand what really went down. At 2:10 a.m., the sea was black as ink. The surface mirror calm above our reconnaissance plane. Call sign, Shadow 2. This P-8 Poseidon drifted above the gray morning clouds, scanning the waves. Then the radar pinged. Infrared showed something ominous. 5 ships moving fast, without lights, without identification, flying so-called humanitarian flags. But none of them belonged to any recognized relief organization. Their transponders were silent. Their documents forged. What was visible was just the tip of an iceberg worth nearly $30 billion. U.S. naval intelligence and allied agencies flagged the targets instantly. What began as a phantom convoy turned into something far worse, a 5-ship fleet acting as a floating drug trafficking convoy. Analysts from agencies like ICE and the Drug Enforcement Administration confirmed this was not a routine smuggling run. It was an industrial-scale operation run jointly by 2 of the hemisphere's most feared cartel figures, Rafael El Toro Mendez of Venezuela and Santiago Ruiz of Mexico. Beneath humanitarian flags lay 5 tons of synthetic drugs, methamphetamine and fentanyl, with an estimated lethal dose count stretching into the tens of millions. The objective was stark: to flood U.S. cities with poison, destabilize economies, enslave a generation and profit from collapse. Immediately, Washington launched what would become known as Operation Iron Tide. A U.S. Navy vessel, the USS Freedom, escorted by 2 Sh-60 Seahawk helicopters and supported by an MQ-9 Reaper drone, stood up to intercept the convoy. This was no law enforcement mission. This was war. At 2:31 a.m., the Navy declared full alert. The Corps' intelligence confirmed a cartel enterprise fused with state-level logistics, mobile laboratories, and cutting-edge power reactors. The 5 ships were armed. Thermal scans revealed 70 fighters, each bearing military-grade AK-103 rifles, RPG grenade launchers, PKM heavy machine guns. These were soldiers in all but name. Their operational footprint: 5 vessels, 5 tons of drugs, 1 network hungry for destruction. The MQ-9 streamed live footage over to U.S. Central Command as agents on board. The USS Freedom prepped for engagement. Within minutes, the silent fleet formed a defensive crescent. The air hung heavy. Inside Freedom's Combat Information Center at 3:10 a.m., the final order came. Rules of engagement lifted. Engage. Engines roared. Rotors shrieked. The trap was set. At 3:23 a.m., the Freedom closed in. Helicopters falling into attack formation. Rotors slicing humid Caribbean air. Commander Ellis Moore broadcast the warning: stop immediately. Hands in the air. There was no surrender, only defiance. The convoy opened fire. Tracer rounds arced through the darkness like burning comets. The Mark 110 57mm naval gun roared, shells screaming across the sea, striking with terrifying precision. 2 enemy vessels were obliterated within 30 seconds. Engines shredded, decks engulfed in flame. 1 cargo ship detonated, its blast erupting into a 30-meter column of blue chemical fire. The Seahawks dove in. M240 machine guns unleashed 950 rounds per minute, shredding gun mounts and railings. The cartel formation collapsed in minutes. From 6,000 meters above, the Reaper circled overhead, live feed streaming to Freedom's deck. 1 cartel vessel broke formation and fled north. Moore's voice cut through the chaos. Reaper 1 fire. An AGM-114 Hellfire missile streaked into the night, vaporizing the vessel in a white flash, visible 20 meters away. On the remaining vessels, DA's Shadows agents boarded burning wrecks. Amid smoke and twisted steel, They found the empire's heart, 5,000 kilograms of methamphetamine and fentanyl sealed in industrial drums labeled Medical Aid Caracas, stacks of $42 million in Venezuelan cash, forged export manifests bearing Colombian customs seals. By 4 or 5 a.m., the sea was quiet again. 43 cartel gunmen were dead. 26 captured, the rest either wounded or burned alive. 5 vessels destroyed or seized. Contraband worth over $30 billion neutralized. As dawn broke on the Caribbean, smoke curled above the waves. Commander Moore stood on deck, first light piercing the mist. The sea went silent, but the war was far from over. He muttered, "Stay with us, because what waited inland would expose something far bigger than drugs." At 7:30 a.m., the fight shifted inland. The sea battle had been one strike, but the network's roots stretched far deeper. Encrypted coordinates flashed through the DEA command in Quantico. Evidence recovered from the convoy pointed to 2 critical nodes in Colombia, Bogota and Cartagena. Hidden behind industrial fronts, the network had manufactured capacity for mass destruction. Within minutes, 150 agents from the DEA and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, supported by Colombian National Police Special Forces, launched coordinated strikes under Operation Iron Tide Phase 2. Helicopters thundered over the coast. At 8:12 a.m., a warehouse near the port of Cartagena was hit. Registered as a charity logistics firm, inside was a chemical fabrication site, producing 2,000 pounds of fentanyl precursors per week. Agents stormed it under fire. 30 cartel soldiers returned fire with automatic weapons and grenades, but were outgunned and surrounded within 10 minutes. Inside, they discovered a labyrinth of machinery, 3D printers, lithium power cells, blueprints for unmanned submarines designed to ferry narcotics across the Gulf of Mexico. In a locked underground chamber, forensic teams found 12 safes stacked with $68 million in cash, gold bars, and encrypted ledgers linking the operation to offshore accounts in Macau, Dubai, and Hong Kong, all bearing the seal of Ortega Holdings, a Venezuelan front company under international sanctions. By 9:00 a.m., simultaneous raids erupted in Bogota's industrial district. DEA Field Commander Miguel Alvarez reported the network had built 5 mobile synthesis pods, each equipped with portable lithium reactors, proof that the organization had merged narcotics and state technology into a single war machine. Resistance was fierce. 32 gunmen opened fire from rooftops, triggering a running battle through the warehouses. 40 minutes later, the site was secured. 25 cartel members killed, 43 captured alive, including a key logistics chief known as El Científico. By noon, both cities were under federal control. The seizures stunned Washington. $1.2 billion in assets, 14 tons of chemicals, dozens of encrypted drives exposing a multinational criminal infrastructure. Helicopters lifted the captured men in handcuffs while the air still smelled of smoke and gunpowder. What had begun as a sea battle now ignited a full-scale urban war. One that revealed the cartel's reach was far greater than anyone had imagined. By 2:00 p.m. in Washington, D.C., inside the White House Situation Room, screens glowed red with satellite feeds from Colombia and the Caribbean. Maps flickered with supply routes stretching from Caracas to Panama, from the Gulf of Mexico to Hong Kong. For the first time, the scale of the operation was fully revealed. This was not a cartel. It was an industrial war machine worth more than $30 billion, spanning 3 continents. Robert Kingsley, Admiral of U.S. Southern Command, addressed the National Security Council, his voice calm but cold. "Gentlemen, this wasn't organized crime. It was logistics warfare." DEA and ICE analysts presented the evidence. 5,000 kilograms of meth and fentanyl seized, 14 tons of precursor chemicals, $110 million in cash and gold, more than 90 encrypted hard drives tracing flows through Macau, Dubai, and Caracas. Forensic chemists confirmed the use of military-grade lithium reactors, technology restricted under international law, and manufactured by a Venezuelan defense contractor. The implication undeniable: state sponsorship. At 3:20 p.m., Operation Iron Tide officially transitioned into Operation Red Horizon, empowering cyber units and financial task forces to strike the network's offshore infrastructure. Within hours, 7 foreign bank accounts were frozen, totaling $1.4 billion in cartel assets. The U.S. Treasury began drafting sanctions against Ortega Holdings and its international suppliers. As the meeting adjourned, silence hung in the room. America had won a battle, but uncovered a far greater war. The enemy no longer hid in jungles or mountains. It prowled through servers, cargo manifests, and trade routes disguised beneath global commerce. At sunset, aboard the USS Freedom, Commander Moore received the encrypted message confirming victory. The sea around him was still littered with the scorched remains of 5 cartel vessels. He turned to his crew and spoke quietly. Remember this day. The next war won't begin with soldiers. It'll begin with cargo. The camera fades on the horizon. The waves glimmer red beneath the dying light, a silent reminder that justice sails always forward, always watching. As the sun dipped below the Caribbean horizon, the smoke from the destroyed convoy thinned into golden mist. The Freedom cut silently across the still water, her flagship marked by gunfire and salt, but her flag unshaken. For those aboard, the war wasn't measured in territory or medals. It was measured in what they had prevented. 5 tons of poison, enough to obliterate millions of American lives, stopped before it could touch shore. Across Washington, the headlines screamed of triumph. The largest maritime drug bust in U.S. history. $30 billion empire collapsed. Yet inside the Pentagon, the mood remained sober. Analysts knew this victory was only the opening act of something darker. The syndicate's files led to dozens of shell companies, hidden ports, and encrypted accounts, proof that narcotics had become a weapon of geopolitics, a silent war fought through addiction, corruption, and chaos. Commander Moore stood alone on deck, wind cutting across his face. Below, sailors catalogued wreckage, charred money, twisted steel barrels marked Medical Aid Caracas. Each fragment told the same story. Somewhere beyond the waves, another convoy would soon be built. He watched the horizon and spoke softly to his crew. Justice isn't a place. It moves with us. It sails. The engines rumbled, echoing across the empty sea. For a moment, the Caribbean was quiet again. No gunfire. No sirens, only the hum of vigilance. Because in a world where greed crosses oceans and violence hides behind diplomacy, America's war no longer begins with armies. It begins with a signal, a shipment, and the courage to stop it before it reaches home. And as long as that courage endures, the sea will remember. Justice will sail again. If you believe America must never sleep through its own battles, then stand with us. Like, share, and keep this story alive, because vigilance is the only wall that never falls.